After winning the lottery, I decided to hide it from my entire family. I asked for help, and only one person reached out to me. My name is Maya, and I'm 34 years old. If you saw me walking down the street, you'd probably forget my face within minutes. Average height, brown hair usually pulled back in a ponytail. Clothes from discount stores that fit well enough. I'm the kind of person who blends into crowds, which has always suited me fine. I work as an accountant at Morrison & Associates Marketing, a mid-sized firm downtown where I spend my days reconciling budgets and tracking expenses. My boss Linda has this habit of dumping last-minute projects on my desk just as I'm packing up to leave, and I always stay late to finish them. That's what I do. I'm reliable Maya, dependable Maya, the one who never complains. My apartment reflects my financial reality perfectly. It's a one-bedroom unit in an older building where the radiator clanks all winter and the air conditioning barely works in summer. The carpet has seen better decades, and most of my furniture comes from relatives' hand-me-downs or garage sales. My greatest luxury is a small flat-screen TV I saved up for 2 years to buy. But every Tuesday, like clockwork, I stop at Murphy's Corner store on my way home from work. Old Mr. Murphy smiles as I approach the lottery counter, already knowing my routine. The usual? He asks, though he already knows. $5 worth, I confirm, watching him print my tickets. 5 precious dollars that could go toward groceries or gas, but instead goes toward those little slips of paper covered in numbers. They represent hope in my otherwise predictable life. My family thinks I'm foolish. During our monthly dinners at Mom's house, obligations disguised as celebrations, someone always brings up my gambling problem. $5 a week adds up, my sister Amanda says, adjusting her diamond bracelet. That's over $250 a year you're throwing away. Easy for her to say. Amanda married Dr. Richard Pemberton straight out of college and now lives in a house with more bathrooms than I have rooms. She drives a luxury SUV and gets weekly manicures, but somehow my $5 lottery tickets are the family's biggest financial concern. My brother Derek isn't much better, though his criticism comes from a different angle. You know the odds are basically impossible, right? He says, usually right before asking to borrow money for his latest business venture or rent, because his band isn't taking off as quickly as expected. Even my divorced parents temporarily unite in their disapproval of my weekly ticket purchases. Mom married George, a retired postal worker who's nice but uncomfortable with our family dynamics. Dad married Patricia, a widow whose grown children treat our side like distant relatives. Despite their criticism, I'm always the one they call when money gets tight. When Mom needed help with George's medical bills, I scraped together what I could. When Derek's band equipment was stolen, I lent him money I couldn't spare. When extended family faced unexpected expenses, my phone would ring. I never say no. Even when it means living on pasta for 2 weeks or walking to work because I can't afford gas, I find a way to help. That's who I am. The responsible one, the reliable one, the one who makes things work even when my own bank account runs on empty. My 2019 Toyota Corolla with its dented bumper and sticky passenger door perfectly represents my life. It isn't pretty or impressive, but it gets me where I need to go. Most days, that feels like enough. I have dreams, of course. Secret dreams I never share during family dinners. Dreams of traveling, maybe going back to school, having enough money to not constantly worry about money. But dreams feel like luxuries I can't afford, so I keep them tucked away like lottery tickets in my wallet, waiting for the right moment to check them against reality. Understanding my family requires a roadmap, and it's messier than anyone wants to admit. Our monthly gatherings aren't heartwarming traditions. They're social experiments where 2 separate households converge at Mom and George's house, creating awkward blended family dynamics that never quite blend. When my parents divorced after 30 years of marriage held together by habit, everything shifted. Dad married Patricia, who treats our side of the family like obligations. Mom married George, a decent man who seems perpetually uncomfortable with the chaos he inherited. Amanda arrives at every gathering like she's gracing us with her presence. Living in her world of country club memberships and charity galas, she's forgotten what it's like to worry about money. We're renovating the guest bathroom, she'll announce. Richard thinks Italian marble is the way to go. Meanwhile, I'm calculating whether I can afford name-brand cereal. She has 2 kids in private schools that cost more annually than I make. She casually mentions violin lessons, equestrian camps, and college prep like these are normal expenses. When she looks at me, I see pity mixed with subtle superiority that makes my skin crawl. Derek is the eternal optimist who's been about to make it big for a decade. His band, the Static Rebels, keeps him working part-time jobs while chasing musical dreams. Derek has charm that makes people believe in him, including me, which explains how I've lent him money more times than I can count. This next gig could change everything, he says, and I find myself reaching for my checkbook again. It's never for frivolous things, always rent, equipment repairs, or crucial opportunities requiring small investments. Derek promises to pay me back with genuine sincerity that convinces me every time. The extended family adds more complexity. Uncle Frank, Dad's brother, made a fortune in real estate and never lets anyone forget it. He drives luxury cars and takes expensive vacations, but mysteriously disappears during family emergencies. His wife Carol collects designer handbags while complaining about property taxes. Cousin Jennifer works in insurance, makes decent money, but lives beyond her means. She shows up discussing shopping sprees while quietly asking for grocery help until payday. Then there's Aunt Rose, Mom's older sister, who stands apart from this complicated web. She's a retired elementary school teacher living modestly in a small house across town. While everyone discusses financial ups and downs like dinner conversation, Rose quietly listens, occasionally offering wisdom we're too caught up in drama to appreciate. Rose never married, dedicating her life to teaching and caring for aging parents. She lives on her pension and Social Security, driving a car older than mine, shopping with Sunday paper coupons. But she has this contentment I envy, peace that comes from knowing exactly who she is. What strikes me about family gatherings is the unspoken scorekeeping. Everyone mentally tracks who's doing well, struggling, or owes what to whom. Money is both endless conversation and underlying tension coloring every interaction. I'm the family's unofficial bank. When Amanda needed down payment help, I emptied my savings. When Derek's equipment was stolen, I put replacement costs on my credit card. When relatives faced medical bills or car repairs, they knew I'd find ways to help, even when I had to sacrifice. But help only flows one way. When I had car troubles or missed work while sick, everyone was too stretched to assist. They'd express sympathy and suggest I be more careful with money or find better work, as if these hadn't occurred to me. During these dinners, I'd catch Aunt Rose watching family dynamics with knowing eyes. She'd catch my gaze and give small smiles that seemed to say she understood something the rest didn't. My 34th birthday fell on a Tuesday, which felt perfectly fitting. Tuesdays were lottery days, so celebrating another year of ordinary life on my weekly rebellion day seemed poetic. The day was unremarkable. Linda piled extra work on my desk as if she'd forgotten my birthday. I spent the afternoon reconciling messy accounts while my phone buzzed with generic birthday texts. Amanda's cake emojis, Derek's promise to call later, and a sweet note from Aunt Rose inviting me to weekend dinner. At Murphy's Corner store that evening, I decided to do something different. Instead of random numbers, I chose ones that meant something. Mom's birthday, Aunt Rose's age, the date Derek and I learned to ride bikes, Amanda's anniversary, even our childhood home address. Feeling lucky today? Murphy asked, handing me the tickets. It's my birthday, I said, as if that explained anything. Well, happy birthday. May this be the year everything changes. His words would prove prophetic. I went home to my empty apartment, heated leftover Chinese takeout, and settled with wine in front of my TV, my one birthday indulgence. The lottery drawing wouldn't air until 11, so I watched a mindless romantic comedy, trying not to think about spending my birthday alone. When the drawing started, I almost didn't pay attention. This routine had become so automatic I barely watched anymore. But something made me look up as numbers were called. The first matched, then the second. By the third, my heart started racing. Fourth number matched, then the fifth. When the sixth and final number was called, I stared at my ticket in complete disbelief. I checked again, then again. I grabbed my laptop and verified on the official lottery website. $47 million. I had won $47 million. My first instinct was calling someone to share this incredible news. I reached for my phone to dial Amanda, then stopped. Something held me back. Maybe all those years as the family ATM, or some instinct I didn't understand yet. Instead, I spent hours researching what happened to lottery winners. What I found made my stomach turn. Story after story of families destroyed by sudden wealth, winners sued by relatives, people crawling out with outstretched hands, fortunes lost within years because they couldn't say no. There was the Ohio woman whose sister sued for half the winnings, claiming they'd agreed to share any wins. The Florida man whose son tried having him declared mentally incompetent to control the money. The New Jersey couple who went bankrupt after 5 years, having given away so much they couldn't manage what remained. But one story haunted me most. Patricia, who'd won $86 million and immediately told her extended family, thinking shared fortune would bring everyone closer. Instead, it destroyed relationships built over decades. Relatives who'd never spoken became best friends long enough to ask for money. Family gatherings turned into negotiation sessions. People who'd once loved her saw her as nothing but a funding source. Patricia ended up cutting contact with most family and moving across country, but damage was done. She'd given away so much trying to make everyone happy that she'd compromised her own security. In interviews, she said the saddest part wasn't losing money. It was learning some people only valued her for what she could give. Reading these stories in my quiet apartment, clutching my winning ticket, I realized I faced a choice defining the rest of my life. I could announce my win and watch family dynamics change forever, possibly destroying relationships. Or I could keep this secret and use it wisely, protecting both money and people I cared about. The more I thought, the more I realized this windfall represented something bigger than money. It was an opportunity to discover who my family really was, not who they claimed to be, but who they truly were when faced with someone else's need. As dawn broke, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't telling anyone about the lottery win. Not yet. First, I was going to find out who my family really was. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 8 years. I had more important things to do than balance someone else's books. At the lottery office downtown, I presented my ticket to a bored-looking woman who'd clearly seen it all before. After verification, she handed me paperwork and rehearsed congratulations. "You'll want financial and legal advisors before deciding on payout," she said. "We have recommended professionals if you'd like." I took the list but had already decided to do my own research. I wasn't trusting anyone else's recommendations for something this important. The next 3 days were a crash course in wealth management. I took more sick days, claiming flu, and spent hours researching estate attorneys specializing in privacy protection. I read about trust structures, tax implications, and asset protection until my eyes burned. I settled on Catherine Morrison, a lawyer specializing in lottery winners. Her downtown office was in a glass tower I'd never had reason to enter. She was younger than expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes and competent air that put me at ease. "You're smart keeping this quiet," Catherine said after I explained my situation. "Too many winners tell everyone immediately before processing what this means for their lives." We spent 2 hours discussing options. Catherine recommended a revocable trust allowing me to claim the prize anonymously, protecting my identity from public records and media attention while giving me control over who knew when. "The lump sum after taxes will be approximately $28 million, she explained. "That's still life-changing, but understand the real number you're working with. $28 million. Even after taxes, more money than I'd imagined in wildest dreams." Catherine introduced me to David Chen, a financial advisor specializing in sudden wealth management. David made complex concepts sound simple and understood psychological aspects of sudden wealth. "Money itself isn't the challenge," David explained. "The challenge is how it changes relationships and self-perception. You'll discover things about people in your life that might be difficult to accept." Together, we developed a comprehensive plan. Most money would be invested conservatively, generating enough passive income for comfortable living without touching principal. A smaller portion would be set aside for charitable giving and potential family assistance. Most importantly, the plan included maintaining my current lifestyle while figuring out next steps. Catherine advised continuing work temporarily to avoid suspicions. David suggested keeping my old car, apartment, everything signaling nothing had changed. "This gives you time to think clearly," Catherine said. "You can observe how people treat you when they think you have nothing versus how they might treat you knowing the truth." The trust was established within a week. Officially, the prize had been claimed by the Mountain View Foundation, a name Catherine suggested that sounded institutional and boring. Money was safely invested, paperwork filed, and to the world I remained the same struggling accountant. But internally, everything changed. I walked, slept, even breathed differently. There was constant awareness of living a double life. At work, I balanced others' budgets while sitting on unimaginable fortune. At family gatherings, I listened to money troubles and financial stress, while knowing I could solve everyone's problems with one phone call. The secret's weight was heavier than anticipated. Every conversation felt like performance. Every interaction filtered through this new reality I couldn't share. My apartment looked the same but felt different. The secondhand furniture and worn carpet didn't bother me anymore because I knew they were temporary. The dented car didn't embarrass me because I was choosing to drive it. But the hardest part was loneliness. I'd gained financial security beyond wildest dreams, but lost ability to be genuinely spontaneous with anyone. Every relationship came with questions about what would happen if they knew the truth. That's when I started developing the plan that would change everything. The plan took shape over a week, refined during lunch breaks and finalized during evening walks. It was elegantly simple, which made it feel both perfect and terrible. I would tell my family I'd lost my job at Morrison and Associates. Not just any job loss, but sudden downsizing that left me scrambling. I'd say the accounting department was restructured, and I was let go with minimal severance, struggling to find work in a competitive market. Then the crucial part, I would ask to borrow $5,000 to tide me over. It wasn't a fortune, but enough that helping would require genuine sacrifice from most family members. It was also an amount that couldn't be easily dismissed or forgotten. What made this revealing was that I'd helped most of these people with similar or larger amounts over years. I'd given Amanda $3,000 for her down payment. I'd lent Derek nearly $4,000 for band expenses. I'd helped with medical bills, car repairs, and emergencies for cousins, uncles, even parents. The plan's beauty was its simplicity. I wasn't asking for anything I hadn't already given. I wasn't requesting help beyond what they could reasonably provide. I was simply asking them to reciprocate support I'd offered when they needed it. But I needed someone to talk to. Someone outside family drama to help process what I was about to discover. That someone was Jenna, my best friend since college, and the only person completely separate from my family complications. Jenna worked as a graphic designer, lived 30 minutes away with her husband and 2 kids. She was the friend who remembered birthdays without Facebook reminders, who'd drive across town with soup when you were sick. Most importantly, she was brutally honest when honesty was needed. I asked her to meet at our usual spot, the Daily Grind Cafe downtown. We'd been meeting there for years, working through everything from career changes to relationship troubles over lattes and pastries. "I need to tell you something," I said after we'd settled into our corner booth, "but promise not to judge me too harshly for what I'm about to do." Jenna raised an eyebrow. That's not a promising conversation starter. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath and told her about winning the lottery. Her eyes widened, narrowed, then widened again as full implications hit her. "Holy shit, Maya. $47 million? Are you serious right now?" "Keep your voice down," I whispered, glancing around the cafe. "Yes, I'm serious, but that's not the part I need you not to judge me for." Then I explained my plan. I watched Jenna's expression change as I laid out my intention to test family by pretending to need help. "You want to lie to your entire family about losing your job so you can see who will lend you money?" she said slowly. "When you put it like that, it sounds terrible." "It sounds manipulative," she said, but her tone was thoughtful rather than accusatory. "But I get why you want to do it. Do you think I'm horrible?" Jenna stirred her latte thoughtfully. "I think you're someone who's been taken advantage of for years, trying to figure out who actually cares about you versus who just sees you as convenient help. But this could backfire spectacularly. What if you find out things you don't want to know? What if this ruins relationships permanently? Maybe some relationships need to be ruined," I said. "Maybe some were already ruined and I couldn't see it because I was always giving." Jenna leaned back, studying me. "You've changed since winning this money. There's something different about you. More determined, I guess." "The money didn't change me. It gave me options I never had before, including the option to find out the truth about people." "Okay," Jenna said finally. "If you're determined to do this, I'll support you. But I have one condition." "What's that?" "You don't do this alone. You call me after every conversation and we process it together. This can mess with your head, and you'll need someone to help you stay grounded." I felt grateful for her friendship. "Thank you. I was hoping you'd say that." I started with my parents, figuring they'd be most likely to help, and success would give me confidence for harder conversations ahead. I called Dad first Thursday evening when I knew he'd be home from the hardware distribution center. "Hey, Dad, do you have a few minutes? I need to talk about something." "Sure, sweetheart. What's going on?" I launched into my rehearsed story about layoffs at Morrison and Associates, how the entire accounting department was restructured, and how I was struggling to find work in the current market. I kept my voice steady but added enough stress to make it believable. "That's tough, honey," Dad said. "These companies don't care about loyalty anymore. After 8 years, you'd think they'd give more notice." "The thing is, Dad, I'm getting desperate. My savings are running out faster than expected, and I've got rent and car payments coming. I was wondering if maybe you and Patricia could help with a loan. Just $5,000 to get me through until I find something?" There was a pause. A long pause. $5,000? Dad's voice became cautious. "Maya, that's a lot of money. Patricia and I are saving for our trip to visit her daughter in Colorado, and we've got our own expenses. I know it's a lot. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't really struggling. You know I've always been responsible with money. Well, maybe we could help with a few $100s. But $5,000? That's just not realistic right now." After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen feeling punched in the stomach. A few $100s. From the man I'd helped with 2,000 when his roof needed emergency repairs last year. I called Mom next, hoping for different response. "Oh, honey, that's terrible," Mom said after hearing the same story. "But you know George worries about his own job security. The Postal Service keeps talking about cuts, and we're trying to be really careful with spending. I understand, but I'm really in a bind. Could you maybe help with part of it? Even a couple thousand would make such a difference." "Maya, you know we would if we could, but we just can't take that financial risk. Have you thought about unemployment benefits? Or maybe part-time work while you're looking?" Unemployment and part-time work. These were her suggestions for the daughter who'd helped with George's medical bills 6 months ago. Amanda was next. I called Saturday morning, knowing she'd be home from weekly yoga class. "Maya, I'm so sorry about your job," she said with seemingly genuine sympathy. "Richard and I were just talking about how unstable the market's become." I explained my financial situation, emphasizing how careful I'd always been and how this was truly emergency. $5,000, Amanda repeated slowly. "Maya, you know we'd love to help, but we've got kids' tuition payments coming. And Richard's thinking about expanding his practice, so we need cash reserves available for that investment." "Amanda, you know I helped with your down payment years ago. I'm not asking for a gift, just a loan until I'm back on my feet. That was different. That was investment in our future. And we did pay you back. Eventually. Eventually. It had taken 3 years and multiple reminders. I just don't think we can take on that obligation right now. But have you considered selling your car? You could probably get enough for a down payment on something less expensive and use the difference for expenses." Sell my car. The suggestion came from someone driving a luxury SUV costing more than I made yearly. By Sunday evening, I'd called 6 family members. Derek at least sounded genuinely upset he couldn't help. "God, Maya, the timing sucks so bad. The band just spent everything on new equipment for upcoming gigs. If you'd called next month, I might have done something." Next month. Always next month with Derek. Uncle Frank was direct in rejection. "Maya, you're young and capable. This is exactly when you need to figure things out on your own. It builds character." Character. From the man who'd asked me to co-sign his boat loan 3 years ago. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Initial sympathy, followed by careful explanations why helping wasn't possible, then suggestions for how I could solve my own problems. People who'd come to me when they needed help suddenly became financial advisors, full of wisdom about budgeting and personal responsibility. That Sunday night, I called Jenna as promised. "It's worse than I thought," I told her, unable to keep hurt from my voice. "I'm sorry. How are you holding up? I feel like I've been living in a fantasy about who these people really are. All these years, I thought I was part of a family that looked out for each other. But it turns out I was just the designated helper." "Maya, I hate to ask this, but have you called everyone yet?" "There's one person left," I admitted. "Aunt Rose. But honestly, I'm almost afraid to call her." "Why?" "Because she's the one person I genuinely respect in this family. And if she disappoints me too, I don't know how I'll handle it." "Maybe that's exactly why you need to call her," Jenna said. Monday evening, I dialed Aunt Rose's number with trembling fingers. She answered on the second ring, voice warm and familiar. "Maya, dear. What a lovely surprise. How are you?" I went through my story again, but somehow it felt different telling it to her. Maybe because I genuinely cared about her response, or maybe because she listened without interrupting, making small sounds of sympathy and concern. "Oh, honey," she said when I finished. "That must be so scary for you. You've always been so responsible and hardworking. The thing is, Aunt Rose, I'm really struggling financially right now. I was wondering if there was any way you could help me with a loan. I know it's a lot to ask, but I need about $5,000 to get through the next couple months." There was no pause this time. No hesitation. "Of course I can help you," she said immediately. "I don't have $5,000 in my checking account, but I have about $3,000 in savings that I can transfer tomorrow. And Maya, you can stay here with me if you need to. I've got that spare bedroom that never gets used." I was so shocked I couldn't speak for a moment. "Maya, are you there? Dear?" "I'm here," I managed. "Aunt Rose, I can't take your savings. That's probably everything you have put away." "Nonsense," she said firmly. "What good is money sitting in the bank if it can't help someone I love when they need it? You've been there for everyone else in this family, Maya. It's time someone was there for you. But what about your own emergencies? What if something happens and you need that money? Then I'll figure something out, just like you're trying to figure something out now." That's what family does for each other. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen and cried. Not the frustrated tears from other calls, but something deeper and more complicated. Relief, gratitude, shame, and profound sadness that it had taken this elaborate deception to discover who really cared about me. Tuesday morning, Aunt Rose called back. "Maya, I've been thinking about your situation all night," she said. "I called the bank first thing this morning. I can get you $3,500 today, and I should be able to manage another $1,500 by week's end." "Aunt Rose, no, I can't let you empty your entire savings account for me. You're not letting me do anything," she said with gentle laugh. "I'm choosing to do this. There's a difference." That afternoon, she drove to my apartment in her ancient Honda Civic with the retired teacher. "Every child was my child" bumper sticker. She handed me an envelope with $3,500 in cash. "I wanted to bring it in person," she said, "so I could give you a proper hug and tell you everything's going to work out." As Aunt Rose hugged me in my living room, I realized I was facing a moral crisis I hadn't anticipated. Here was this wonderful woman, sacrificing her financial security for someone she loved, and that someone was lying to her about needing help. "Aunt Rose," I said as we sat on my couch, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." "Why didn't you hesitate? Everyone else I called had reasons why they couldn't help, but you didn't even pause to think about it." She was quiet for a moment, looking out my window at the parking lot where her old car sat next to my dented Corolla. "Do you know why I never married, Maya?" I shook my head. "It wasn't because I never fell in love. I did, several times. But I learned early that you can tell everything you need to know about a person by watching how they treat people who can't do anything for them in return." She turned to look at me directly. "I've watched you your whole adult life, Maya. I've seen you help people who never said thank you, lend money to people who forgot to pay you back, and show up for family members who were conveniently busy when you needed support. You give because you care, not because you expect something in return. But how do you know I'm not just like everyone else? How do you know I wouldn't disappoint you if our situations were reversed?" Aunt Rose smiled and patted my hand. "Because, dear one, I've been watching. And in 40 years of teaching, I learned that character isn't what people do when they think someone's paying attention. It's what they do when they think no one is looking." I couldn't sleep that night, knowing Aunt Rose's savings account was $3,500 lighter because of my deception. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her writing that check with such confidence, such love, such complete trust in someone who was lying to her. Thursday evening, I drove to her house. It was a small bungalow built in the 1950s. With a garden full of vegetables and flowers she tended herself. The interior was exactly what you'd expect from a retired teacher. Bookshelves everywhere, comfortable furniture that had seen decades of use, walls covered with artwork from former students. "Maya," she said, opening the door with a smile. "What a wonderful surprise. Come in, dear. I was just making some tea." We sat in her living room, surrounded by evidence of a life spent caring for others. Thank you cards from students, photos of children who'd visited years after graduation, small gifts speaking of relationships maintained long after classroom connections ended. "Aunt Rose," I began, hands trembling as I held my teacup, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond." Her expression became serious, but she nodded encouragingly. "I lied to you about losing my job. I lied to everyone. I still work at Morrison & Associates, and I'm not in any financial trouble." I watched her face carefully, expecting shock or anger, but she simply set down her teacup and waited for me to continue. 3 weeks ago, I won the lottery, $47 million. After taxes, it's about $28 million. I hired lawyers, set up trusts, invested the money, and decided not to tell anyone in the family. Aunt Rose's eyebrows rose slightly, but she still didn't speak. I wanted to find out who really cared about me, not just who needed something from me. So I made up this story about needing help, and I asked everyone for $5,000. Everyone except you found reasons why they couldn't help, even though I've helped all of them with similar amounts over the years. My voice started breaking as I continued, but you didn't hesitate. You offered me your entire savings account, and you did it with such love and generosity that I realized I'd become someone I didn't want to be. Someone who would test people she cares about instead of just trusting them. "I'm returning your money, Aunt Rose. I'm sorry I lied to you, and I'm sorry I made you question your own financial security because of my deception." For a long moment, we sat in silence. Then Aunt Rose began to laugh. Not bitter laughter, but something warm and knowing. "Oh, Maya," she said, wiping her eyes. "You poor dear. What a weight you've been carrying. You're not angry?" "Angry? Honey, I'm proud of you." "Proud? I lied to you. I manipulated you. You tested people who had given you every reason to doubt their loyalty, she said gently. And when you realized your test had hurt someone who didn't deserve it, you chose honesty over convenience. That takes courage. She leaned forward and took my hands in hers. Maya, can I tell you something about your family that you might not realize? I nodded, still feeling ashamed. I've been watching these dynamics for decades, long before you were old enough to understand them. Your parents, siblings, cousins, they love you, but they've never learned to show love through sacrifice. They've always known you would be there when they needed help, so they never had to develop the muscles required to help others. That doesn't excuse their behavior. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. You've been so reliable, so consistently generous, that they started taking you for granted. They began seeing your help as a given rather than a gift. Aunt Rose stood and walked to her kitchen, returning with homemade cookies. I've been thinking about this since I gave you that money, she said. Something about your situation didn't feel right to me. Not because I doubted you needed help, but because it seemed out of character for you to ask for it. You knew I was lying? I suspected something was going on, she admitted. But I also knew that whatever was really happening, you needed something from me. Maybe not money, but something. So I gave you what you asked for and trusted you'd tell me the truth when you were ready. I stared at her, amazed once again by her wisdom. Aunt Rose, what should I do about the rest of the family? Should I tell them the truth? That depends. What do you want to accomplish? I want them to understand how their behavior affects other people. I want them to know that relationships can't be one-sided forever. And do you think telling them about the lottery will accomplish that? I thought about it. No. I think it would just make them angry and defensive. They'd focus on the deception instead of examining their own actions. Then maybe there's another way to have that conversation? What do you mean? Aunt Rose smiled. You don't have to reveal the lottery to confront them about their responses to your request for help. You can address the real issue, the fact that they weren't there when you asked for support, without getting into the complexities of your financial situation. You think I should tell them I found another solution to my money problems? I think you should tell them exactly what you've learned about reciprocity in relationships. Whether that includes the lottery is up to you. The monthly family dinner was scheduled for Sunday at Mom's house. I spent the week planning what I would say, how to address what happened without revealing the full truth about my financial situation. I arrived with different energy than I'd ever brought to these gatherings. Instead of the usual nod of anxiety, I felt calm and purposeful. I had information now, data about who these people really were, and that knowledge was both painful and liberating. Everyone was already there when I walked in. Amanda showed off photos of her kids' latest achievements, while Derek tuned his guitar in the corner. Adults made small talk about work and weather while George grilled burgers on the back patio. Maya, Mom called from the kitchen. How are you doing, honey? Any luck with the job search? This was my opening. Actually, I have good news about that, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I found something. It's a better position than I had before, with a significant salary increase. The room buzzed with congratulations and relief. Dad patted my shoulder. Amanda hugged me. Derek called out, "Way to go, sis," from across the room. That's wonderful, dear, Aunt Rose said, giving me a knowing look. I'm so happy everything worked out for you. Actually, I continued, my voice still carrying across the room, I want to talk to everyone about something while we're all together. Conversations died down as people turned their attention to me. I could feel my heart beating faster, but my voice remained steady. A few weeks ago, when I told you all about losing my job, I reached out asking for help. Specifically, I asked to borrow $5,000 to get me through until I found new work. I could see some people shifting uncomfortably, probably remembering their responses. I want to be clear that I understand everyone has their own financial obligations and concerns. I'm not angry with anyone for not being able to help. This was technically true, though not the whole truth. But the experience taught me something important about our family dynamics that I think we need to discuss. Dad cleared his throat. Maya, if this is about... Please let me finish, Dad. This is important. He nodded, looking uncomfortable. For the past 10 years, I've helped various family members with financial emergencies. I've given money for down payments, medical bills, car repairs, business investments, and day-to-day expenses. I've never asked for interest, never demanded repayment schedules, and never made anyone feel bad for needing help. I could see Amanda exchanging glances with her husband, and Derek had stopped strumming his guitar. When I found myself in trouble, I called 7 different family members asking for help. Only one person offered to assist me, and she offered to give me her entire life savings. all eyes turned to Aunt Rose, who smiled serenely and continued eating her potato salad. The rest of you, people I've helped with thousands of dollars over the years, found reasons why helping me wasn't possible. And that's your right. But it's also information about what kind of relationships we actually have. Maya, Amanda said, her voice tight. That's not fair. You know we would help if we could, but the timing was just… Amanda, 3 years ago I gave you $3,000 for your house down payment. It took 3 years to pay me back, and you never once apologized for the delay. Last month you spent more than $5,000 on your kitchen renovation. Amanda's face flushed red. That's completely different. That was planned spending, not an emergency loan. You're right, it is different. When you needed help, it was an emergency. When I needed help, it was an inconvenience. Derek put down his guitar. Maya, come on. You know I would have helped if I could. The band just… Derek, I've lent you money 4 times in 2 years, almost $4,000 total. You've paid back about half, usually months late, never without me asking first. I always pay you back eventually, he protested. Eventually isn't the same as reliably. When I needed help, you said maybe next month. I turned to Dad. Dad, last year when your roof leaked, I gave you $2,000 for emergency repairs. No questions asked, no payment plan. When I called for help, you offered a few hundred and suggested unemployment benefits. The weeks following that family dinner brought a clarity I'd never experienced before. It was as if I'd been living my entire adult life wearing glasses with the wrong prescription, and suddenly everything came into sharp focus. The first major decision I made was to leave Morrison and Associates. Not dramatically or vindictively, but professionally and definitively. I gave Linda 2 weeks' notice and trained my replacement thoroughly. You've been so reliable, Maya. I always thought you'd be here forever, she said as I cleaned out my desk. That's exactly why I needed to leave, I replied. With Catherine Morrison's help, I established the Rose Garden Foundation, named after the woman who had shown me what unconditional love looked like. The foundation's mission was to assist elderly individuals struggling financially, particularly retired teachers and other public service workers who had dedicated their lives to helping others. David Chen helped me structure the foundation's finances conservatively. We allocated $2 million initially, with investment income funding operations and grants. It wasn't flashy or headline-grabbing, but it would make a real difference in people's lives. The first person I helped through the foundation was Aunt Rose herself, though she didn't know it at first. I discovered through careful research that she'd been struggling with increasing medical expenses related to her arthritis and had been rationing medications to make them last longer. The foundation approved a medical assistance grant for her, officially because she met our criteria as a retired educator with demonstrated financial need. When she called to tell me about the unexpected help, I could hear the relief in her voice. Maya, the most amazing thing happened, she said. There's this foundation that helps retired teachers, and they're going to cover my medical expenses for the whole year. Can you believe that? That's wonderful. Aunt Rose, you deserve that kind of support. 6 months after leaving my job, I bought a modest house 3 blocks from Aunt Rose. Nothing extravagant, a 2-bedroom ranch with a small yard and updated kitchen. To anyone observing, it looked like a reasonable upgrade for someone with a new, better-paying job. Aunt Rose was delighted to have me as a neighbor. We started sharing dinner twice a week, alternating between our houses. She taught me to garden, and I helped her with technology and household repairs becoming difficult for her arthritic hands. The foundation work gave me a sense of purpose I'd never had in accounting. We helped retired teachers with medical expenses, assisted elderly individuals with home repairs, and provided emergency grants for people facing unexpected crises. Every month, I reviewed applications and met with beneficiaries, seeing firsthand how modest assistance could transform someone's situation. An elderly man who could finally afford hearing aids, a retired librarian who could repair her car and maintain independence, a former social worker who could buy diabetes medications. It was deeply satisfying work, but more than that, it felt aligned with who I really was and who I wanted to be. My family relationships had definitely changed. Amanda called a few weeks after the dinner to apologize, sort of. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, and I want you to know Richard and I really would have helped if we could have. The timing was just really difficult. I understand, I'd replied, though I didn't entirely believe her. Our relationship now was polite but distant. She still sent birthday texts and Christmas cards, but the automatic assumption that I would be available for whatever she needed was gone. Derek had been more honest in his response. I've been a shitty brother when it comes to money stuff, he'd admitted during a phone call. I always just assumed you were better at handling things than I was, so it was okay for me to be irresponsible because you'd figure it out. I'm not your backup plan anymore, Derek. I know, and I'm trying to do better. To his credit, Derek had started managing his finances more responsibly. He'd gotten a steady part-time job in addition to his music, and had even paid me back $200 without being asked. 1 year after that transformative family dinner, I was sitting in my garden on a warm Saturday morning, reviewing grant applications for the Rose Garden Foundation. The morning sun filtered through the oak tree I'd planted in spring, and I could hear Aunt Rose humming while she worked in her yard next door. The foundation had grown beyond my wildest expectations. What started as a quiet effort to help retired educators had expanded into comprehensive support for elderly individuals facing financial hardship. We'd assisted over 200 people in our first year, and word was spreading through communities about the help available. "Maya," Aunt Rose called over the fence, "come see what's blooming in my rose garden." I set down the applications and walked over to admire the spectacular display of pink and yellow roses she'd been nurturing all season. At 72, she moved more slowly than a year ago, but the foundation's medical assistance had made an enormous difference in her quality of life. Her arthritis medication was covered, she'd afforded physical therapy, and she'd even splurged on ergonomic gardening tools. "They're beautiful," I said, admiring the blooms. "You have such a gift with these plants." "I've been thinking," she said, settling onto her new garden bench. "Another discreet foundation gift through our home modification program. You should consider expanding the foundation's work to include job training for older adults who want to return to work." This was classic Aunt Rose. Even while benefiting from the foundation's assistance, she was thinking about helping other people. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Band got selected for the Summer Music Festival, playing 3 shows in July. Wanted you to be the first to know." I smiled as I typed back, "That's amazing. So proud of you." Derek's transformation over the past year had been remarkable. After our family confrontation, he'd taken a hard look at his financial habits and started treating his music career like a business. He'd kept his part-time job, created a budget, and had even started saving money for equipment purchases instead of borrowing it. "I'm making dinner tonight," I texted back. "Want to come over and tell me more about the festival?" "Yes, can I bring anything?" This was another change. The old Derek would have shown up expecting to be fed and entertained. The new Derek offered to contribute. Amanda and I had found a new equilibrium that was more honest, if less close than before. She'd invited me to her daughter's dance recital the previous month, and I'd gone, genuinely enjoying the performance. "Maya, I've been reading about your foundation online," she'd said during our last conversation. "It's really impressive what you're accomplishing." "Thank you. It's become a real passion project for me. I was wondering if there might be ways for Richard and me to get involved, maybe volunteer work or fundraising support." The offer had surprised me, but I'd appreciated the gesture. Amanda was trying to contribute rather than just consume, and that felt like real progress. My parents had also made efforts to rebuild our relationship on more equal footing. Dad had started calling regularly, not because he needed anything, but to maintain connection. Mom had invited me to lunch several times, one-on-one conversations where she seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and experiences. The foundation work had introduced me to an entirely new community. I'd met other foundation directors, retired professionals who volunteered their time, and social workers who helped us identify people needing assistance. It was a network built around shared values rather than shared genetics. That evening, as Derek, Aunt Rose, and I shared dinner in my kitchen, I reflected on how different my life looked compared to a year ago. Same neighborhood, but everything else had changed. The anxious, people-pleasing woman who had bought those lottery tickets was gone, replaced by someone who knew her own worth and insisted others recognize it too. "Maya," Aunt Rose said as we cleaned up after dinner, "I hope you know how proud I am of the woman you've become." "I had a good teacher," I replied, meaning it completely. "We taught each other," she said with that wise smile I'd come to love. "That's what real family does." As I watched Derek help Aunt Rose to her car that evening, I realized the lottery win had ultimately given me something unexpected: the ability to build the family I'd always wanted from people who truly deserved to be in it. 2 years after buying those life-changing lottery tickets, I'm sitting in the same coffee shop where I'd first told Jenna about my win, but everything else about my world has transformed beyond recognition. The Rose Garden Foundation has become a regional model for elder assistance. With satellite programs opening in 3 neighboring states, we've helped over 600 individuals, and our volunteer network includes more than 200 people donating their time and expertise. Jenna asked me a question that's been haunting me for weeks. If you had to do it all over again, would you still buy those lottery tickets? It's profound because winning wasn't just about gaining money. It was about losing innocence. The naive woman who believed her family loved her unconditionally was replaced by someone who understood that love often comes with conditions and limitations. Aunt Rose, now 74, remains the cornerstone of my chosen family. Her health has stabilized thanks to consistent medical care, and she's become the unofficial grandmother figure for several foundation beneficiaries who don't have family nearby. She started teaching weekly cooking classes for seniors. Combining her love of nurturing with practical education, she still doesn't know about the lottery win, and I've decided she never needs to. Our relationship is perfect exactly as it is, built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than financial obligations or secrets. Derek has become someone I'm genuinely proud to call my brother. The Static Rebels has built a solid regional following and actually makes money now. More importantly, Derek developed into a responsible adult who manages finances, maintains steady employment, and contributes meaningfully to relationships. He recently started dating a music teacher named Lisa, and watching him navigate this relationship with maturity has been remarkable. Last month, he asked for my advice about proposing. Not financial assistance, just thoughts on whether he was ready for marriage. "I want to make sure I can be the partner she deserves," he'd said, a statement unthinkable from the old Derek. Amanda and I have settled into a relationship that's cordial but distant. She's made genuine efforts to be more reciprocal, remembering my birthday, asking about my work, even volunteering occasionally for foundation events. But there's underlying wariness between us now, acknowledgement that our relationship was damaged by years of imbalanced expectations. We'll never be as close as we once were, but we've found sustainable dynamics that allow us to be sisters without the toxicity that characterized our previous relationship. My parents have both made significant efforts to rebuild our connection on equal terms. Dad calls every Sunday now, conversations focusing on checking in rather than asking for anything. Mom started inviting me to regular lunches, one-on-one time where she seems genuinely interested in my thoughts and experiences. The most unexpected development has been my relationship with James, a retired social worker who volunteers as our foundation coordinator. He knows nothing about my lottery win. To him, I'm simply Maya, the foundation director who somehow found resources to create this organization. He's attracted to my passion for the work and my commitment to helping others. James proposed last month during a volunteer appreciation dinner, doing it publicly in front of all the people whose lives we'd touched together. I've struggled with whether to tell him about the lottery before we marry. Catherine Morrison has advised creating a prenuptial agreement protecting the foundation's assets while providing for James appropriately. But perhaps the most important transformation has been internal. The woman who used to say yes to every request has been replaced by someone who sets boundaries and maintains them consistently. I've learned that saying no to inappropriate requests isn't cruel. It's necessary for healthy relationships. The lottery money sits in carefully managed investments, generating income that funds our foundation work while preserving principal for future generations. I live comfortably but not extravagantly, in the same modest house near Aunt Rose. My greatest luxury is freedom. Freedom from financial anxiety, toxic relationships, and freedom to spend time on work aligning with my values. These freedoms are worth more than any material possession. The lottery win didn't change who people were. It simply revealed who they had always been. Amanda had always been self-centered. The test just made it visible. Derek had always been irresponsible. The crisis highlighted patterns I'd been too generous to acknowledge. But Aunt Rose had always been loving and generous. If I could change anything, I wouldn't change buying those tickets. Winning that money, confronting my family, or establishing boundaries. All those experiences led me to this life, surrounded by people who value me authentically, where my work makes meaningful difference, and where I wake up every morning knowing exactly who I am and what I stand for. The lottery win gave me something more valuable than money. The ability to discover that my worth isn't determined by my usefulness to others, but by my own inherent value as a human being. And that understanding has made me truly rich.